listening to LSU Daily with Matt Musso, your home for all things LSU sports.
Off here on another edition of LSU Daily. Welcome in and glad to have you with me. Thank you for being here as well. Well, the portal continues to turn. We have more to talk about. Obviously, Ka'Morreun Pimpton, the big one for LSU on Tuesday, entering his name into the transfer portal, brings the Tigers total up to 14 players in the portal as of this recording. We will break it down, what it means for LSU, because, well, it means a lot for LSU. That impacts your offense in multiple different ways, and none of them are really good. So we'll go into that. But it also doesn't really change your needs as much. Like, your needs are still the same. It just exacerbates them a little bit more. So we'll hop in on that. It's another day, so there's another edge rusher considering LSU and talking about them on the record. We'll pass that along to you. Very familiar name that you should recognize immediately when we say it, because it's a very familiar last name when we bring it up a little bit later on, because it's very familiar to the SEC. You've heard it, trust me. So that's what we've got on tap for today. Programming note, last show of the week. I am out Thursday, Friday, because one of my best friends is getting married. That'll be a whole ordeal. The festivities for that will keep me pretty busy for the next 2 days throughout, but we'll be back on Monday, as always, with everything that missed while we were out and all the latest developments. That's a good time to remind you, social media. Follow me there, at Musso Matthew on Twitter, Twitter X, I should say, Facebook, Instagram, all of those things. While I can't maybe record a full podcast, I can give a few thoughts if something major does happen over the next 2 days. So let's dive right into it here today while we have the time. And we'll start with Ka'Morreun Pimpton entering the transfer portal after 2 seasons at LSU. On the surface, yeah, this is a disappointing one, just because Ka'Morreun Pimpton came in with a lot of hype, and he's a complete freak athlete. And it's also disappointing because you saw him in the last game of the season really kind of start to take a step as a pass catcher, which is what everybody really favored him as coming in. I mean, he's put on some weight since he's been at LSU. They have him listed at 6'6", 242, but that wasn't really the case for him as a freshman. He was a 4-star out of high school consensus, the number 6 tight end in the country as well. But you'll remember he was a bit undersized at that point. In high school, he was 6'6", 220, whatever, and they just lined him up and said, hey, go run. You're bigger than everybody. Jump, catch the ball, we'll throw it up. And he had a very impressive highlight tape. He was an absolute freak show. And in the little bit of time you've seen him at LSU, you've seen the flash of that freak show, and again, none bigger than the game against Oklahoma. It was his first time going over 50 yards receiving. It was his first multi-catch game in his career at LSU, and he had a long of 42. You really saw it all on display. You saw the ability, big play ability from a guy like Ka'Morreun Pimpton, and why everyone was so high on him coming out of high school and when he got to LSU. The fact is, though, it just really didn't ever materialize. You bring him in as a tight end, he gets the weight on him, but the other parts of the tight end job, the dirty part of the tight end job, blocking, things of that nature, were taking a little longer to develop than you would like. Also, it doesn't help that you had Mason Taylor in front of him, who is the best tight end in school history and now off to the NFL draft. And I get what you could say, well, Taylor's gone, why are you leaving now? Well, again, I would point back to, okay, it's everything else that has to do with tight end that's going to set him back. He would need to make a big jump in order to get on the field at that position for LSU. Now, was he an option? Sure, he was absolutely an option. But I mentioned right off the top that this hurts LSU in multiple phases of the offense, and it's because you lose a pass catcher first and foremost, in my opinion, with Ka'Morreun Pimpton, and you've lost plenty of those already in this portal cycle, none bigger than C.J. Daniels. But Kyron Lacey, gone to the draft. Shelton Sampson enters the portal. I mean, Landon Ibieta, gone as well. Go on and on and on and on and on there. Mason Taylor, pass catcher, off to the draft, but also the complete tight end. But from a pass catching standpoint, off to the draft. You look, you get Aaron Anderson back. That's huge. Xavier Thomas should return. That's awesome. Kyle Parker will be coming off of injury. Okay, but still unproven. We'll see what happens with Chris Hilton, obviously, in the decision that he has to make. But pass catcher is a place that you've been really, really thin, and we've talked plenty about that with LSU. So Ka'Morreun Pimpton hurts you there because, again, seeing what you saw in that final game against Oklahoma, you finally saw the flash. You look forward to a bowl game, especially with all these guys entering the portal. Okay, could he show out there a little bit and maybe carve out a role for next year? Well, we'll never get that answer because he's going to enter the portal and leave you thin at pass catcher. So we've talked plenty about wide receiver, as I just mentioned. Where does LSU stand? Well, Pete Nakos, I'm sure many of you saw this yesterday afternoon. If you did not, I'll pass it along now. Pete Nakos over at On3, one of their big national insiders, has put in a prediction for LSU to land Barian Brown, a transfer receiver out of Kentucky. The name should sound familiar to you. We've talked about him plenty already. Barian Brown was the second highest ranked recruit in Kentucky history when he signed with the Wildcats in the class of 2022. Burst onto the scene as a freshman All-American, 628 yards, 4 touchdowns. Followed that up after a change at offensive coordinator in 2023, with a 539-yard season, so not really the jump you wanted to see. And then another change at offensive coordinator for Kentucky this season in 2024, and the numbers took a huge hit. Now, also, he wasn't playing – the quarterback position there wasn't great. Obviously, Brock Vandagriff did not materialize like Kentucky thought it would. When he had Will Levis throwing him the ball, that's when he was most productive. So the ability is there. Out of Nashville, Tennessee, 6'1", 182, so good size. He's a very versatile player as well. Has shown the ability to run the football also. Kentucky's gotten him in there. Gotten him mixed into the offense there plenty as well. He did find the end zone both of the last seasons also as a runner, just rushing the football. So versatile guy. Can he be your true number one? I think that remains to be seen, but you have seen plenty of production from him in the past. Like him being the second highest ranked recruit in Kentucky history is awesome, but the production is what really matters, and you have seen that in the past when he's had a capable quarterback throwing him the football in Will Levis. If he does come to LSU, that's something that would obviously help entice Garrett Nussmeier to come back, who we know would be a capable quarterback throwing him the football. So it's a prediction in for LSU to land Barian Brown. We'll keep our eyes peeled for that if that is ultimately the decision that he makes. Again, it's just one man's prediction, but that's a really good sign for LSU at a giant position of need that got bigger when Ka'Morreun Pimpton entered his name into the transfer portal. Now, you wouldn't be done there at receiver either because we just talked about everything else that you're lacking. But the other part about this, maybe what is actually the bigger pressing need out of this, I kind of started in reverse a little bit where Ka'Morreun Pimpton impacts you most on the field, but where this exacerbates the need is at tight end. Because now the only scholarship tight end left on the team is nobody. They moved Trey Green to receiver. We'll come back to that. You did sign J.D. LaFleur in the 2025 class, so he will be coming in, and other than that, that's it. Those are your scholarship players. So you have Luke Haas on campus this week, transfer out of Arkansas. We've talked plenty about him. That's a huge get, but tight end is now your biggest need in the portal, and it's now one that you have to get multiple bodies at if you're LSU. Now, talked about Trey Green. Would they want to move him back over to tight end? I would not be opposed to that move at all. Definitely given the circumstance, but in general, when you're looking for a guy to fill that role, I mean, Trey Green's got the body to do it. The guy is 6'7", 250. Like, he should be able to develop into a blocker, and he's also an absolute freak athlete. You saw that at points this season. That's a mismatch on the field, especially in the red zone in the pass game. Like, that guy with time should be able to develop into the complete tight end role that LSU seeks. just based off of measurables and athletic ability. Now, will he? I don't know. That's a different story. It might take a little longer, but LSU's obviously high on the young man. They found ways to get him on the field and actually get him on the field in front of Ka'Morreun Pimpton, if we're being honest. So another reason Pimp might be looking for a new opportunity there. But that's something that LSU has to strongly consider right now. We'll see what they do in the portal, how they go about things. But moving Trey'Dez Green back to tight end might be a necessity. And again, even before all the turnover at the position, it's something I would have been in favor for, just because prototypical. Actually, he's better than the prototype that you're looking at from a measurable standpoint at tight end, especially with the 6'7" frame. So we'll see how that goes. Again, told you, they have Luke Haas. We've mentioned him plenty. He's on campus for a visit this week. He'll also visit Alabama and Ole Miss. Talked about that a little bit on Tuesday's show as well. And then Bauer Sharp, the tight end from Oklahoma that they figured to be in on, and they've already got an offer out to Zach Atkins, Division II transfer, who has one hell of an offer list. Really all the power schools that you want to see on it, so there's plenty of competition there as well. But they're in on some of the top tight ends. Can they get them? That's going to be the question. LSU's promised to be aggressive. Okay, well, tight ends where you're really going to have to put your money where your mouth is at that position if you're LSU, because right now, until they officially move Trey'Dez Green back, or if they do that, you have J.D. LaFleur coming in as your only scholarship tight end. Look, he's a 4-star out of Sulphur, great frame, big upside, all of those things, legacy at LSU, but asking him to come in day one with no depth behind him and start is not the path that LSU wants to take, and it's not the path they will take. How big will they hit in the portal is more the question. They're going to sign tight ends because they have to, but how big will they score? That's ultimately the question that's going to decide a lot at a extremely important position in Brian Kelly's offense. All right, last but not least, I guess it's your daily edge rusher update. I mean, this is the 5th name now we're throwing out at edge rusher for LSU to keep an eye on. And as I said at the top of the show, the last name will sound very familiar, especially to SEC fans. This is edge Princewell Unman-Malayan. Yes, that is the brother of former Florida edge and current Ole Miss edge Princely Unman-Malayan. He has spent the last 2 seasons at Nebraska, 6'5", 245. Think more Braden Swinson-esque in the edge rusher role here for Unman-Malayan. Would be a huge get. I mean, like his brother Princely, extremely talented, was one of the top players coming out of high school. But if you look at just the production at Nebraska, specifically his freshman year, played in 11 games with 1 start, 22 tackles, had a sack, and 4.5 tackles for loss. He was named second-team freshman All-American by The Athletic after that freshman season. And then you turn around to this year, 2024, his sophomore season, played in every game for Nebraska, so 12 games there. You're looking at 23 games played with 1 start for the young man so far in college. 13 tackles this season, 2.5 tackles for loss, and half a sack. So while he hadn't really been able to force himself into the starting lineup, he has played in 23 games and has been productive so far as well. You're looking at 7 tackles for loss over the career. You're looking at 35 total tackles and a sack and a half so far through 2 seasons. So this is a guy that LSU is in on, that he has talked about on the record as well. Hayes Fawcett over at On 3 had the report. He spoke with Princewell Unman-Malayan, and he gave a handful of schools, so really more than that, 6 schools that are standing out, and they're all big names. Ole Miss, Auburn, Florida State, Texas Tech, Texas A&M, and LSU. Now, for what it's worth, again, his brother is finishing up at Ole Miss, Princely Unman-Malayan. So obviously keep that in mind. That's going to be some tough competition there. He's visiting Ole Miss this week, Thursday and Friday, December 12th, December 13th. He will be at Ole Miss. After that, he's visiting Texas A&M the second half of Friday and Saturday. We will see how it goes, but LSU, no, you don't have the tie to family. like Ole Miss does. You don't have the unlimited resources in money and NIL like Texas A&M does. But what you do have is Kevin Peoples and Blake Baker. And when you look at the development of LSU's edges this season under Kevin Peoples, that's something big to sell, especially with LSU having more NIL money to spend than normal. You should be able to put together a really nice offer combined with a guy like Kevin Peoples, who's developed Braden Swinson into an NFL draft pick, and Savion Jones, most likely into an NFL draft pick as well. We'll see if that's enough to get across the finish line. Who knows? LSU has to get him on campus. Will they do that? We'll wait and see. But that's another talented edge rusher in the portal talking about LSU on the record. And he comes from great talent in his family at the SEC level and just in college football. His oldest brother, Prince, theme there with the names, by the way. His oldest brother, Prince, played at Tarleton State. So, also an edge rusher. So, we'll wait and see. Prince Will Unman-Malayan, again, brother of Princely Unman-Malayan, currently at Ole Miss. We'll keep you posted on the very latest if anything new transpires there. All right, ran through one final look. Didn't really see anything else pop for LSU as of this recording, so that's where you stand. That's going to wrap us up. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Follow on social media as mentioned early. Be back here on Monday for the next edition of LSU Daily. We'll talk then.